Okay, good morning. Hi, Pat. Hi, Nancy.
Hey,
Good
good
morning,
morning.
Nancy. Oh, wow. So here we are, Nancy's Nourishing Foods, Nourishing Kitchen.
Yes.
And I'm really excited about today because we're doing something that most people don't think is really nourishing or really healthy, which is doing snacking.
Yes.
It's one of the things I think we all do, and certainly it's a great thing to do when we're just sort of hanging out, if you will. And a lot of people are hanging out nowadays, given the pandemic. So I'm wondering if you can kind of bring us in. We're talking about this episode 4, I think.
We are
Uh,
episode 4. Yeah.
yeah, wow, wow. And we're talking about the snack attack, everything healthy for everyone. Is that
Right.
right? How
That's
does that
exactly.
how does that work?
Well, everybody thinks of snacks as chips and cookies. So I was just thinking you can snack and have healthy food, and you don't necessarily have to reach for the chips and the cookies for a snack. We've also had different people talk about different food issues, health issues. So I wanted to make this something that was available to everybody, whether they're just choosing, say, to be vegetarian or more plant-based, or if you've got some health concerns like celiac disease or diabetes or heart health or digestive issues. So instead of making one crazy health claim, and obviously anybody with any kind of health condition should always discuss food and anything else with their doctor, but we can all eat healthy stuff no matter what our dietary issues or preferences are.
Right, right. Now I know that certainly for me, and I think for a lot of other people, we kind of think, ice cream. We think, dried fruit, stuff like that. I mean, for me, I know like one of my go-tos is maybe I'll have, certainly pineapple, or or I was doing ice cream, but now I do a sort of a coconut ice cream. But
Mm-hmm.
then, I do some other things. Now, from what I understand, there's this thing called a trifecta. What is that? What is the trifecta
A
about snacks?
trifecta of food. It is protein, healthy fat, and fiber
Hmm.
slash good carbohydrates. So when you have that healthy trifecta, it keeps your blood sugar balanced. It satiates you so you don't feel as hungry right away. And the fiber is great for your body. It kind of slows down digestion. It slows down the rush of sugar into the bloodstream. So whether you're having a meal or a snack, always think of that trifecta. The word sticks in my head, and I find a lot of people will remember that. So protein, healthy fat, and fiber. And if you kind of have a little balance of all of that, your snacks can be perfectly fine.
So, like, I don't snack on this often, but I have snacked on it. Like, I might have a piece of some celery and some peanut butter.
Mhm.
Now I'm not sure. I think peanut butter has a lot of unsaturated fats in it versus maybe almond butter. But is that kind of what you're talking about, like the fiber and the fat? Is that, or should I be eating nuts, or what does that look like to
Nope,
you?
that's perfect. So a celery with peanut butter is a perfect idea of a snack. My daughter actually made that a couple of weeks ago, and it brought us back to childhood. That was probably one of the first snacks maybe our parents gave us as a kid. And we were eating it, and I remember saying, "Oh, this is good. We should do this more often." So you have your fiber from your celery and your plant food, and you have your healthy fat and your protein in the nut butter, whether it's peanut butter or almond butter. They're different, so they have different nutrient profiles. Neither one is better than the other. It's really a matter of what you like. If anybody has a nut allergy, sunflower seed butter is an option. So some people can have seeds and not nuts. So you don't necessarily have to stick with almond and peanut butter. You can kind of make it work. But that's the perfect trifecta all in one little healthy bite. And you got the
Sunflower,
crunch, the creamy.
sunflower seed butter, really?
Yes, sunflower seed butter.
Wow, they must use a lot of sunflower seeds to make that, huh?
Yeah, I think they do. But I've used that when I've done healthy cooking things for people who have nut allergies, but they can have the seeds. So it's also a great swap.
So if you're looking at snacks and you're looking at ways of doing this, is it, I mean, does it take a while to kind of develop the taste process or the taste, what would you call it? The taste palate or,
Your palate, right?
yeah, does that take a while to adjust or how
It
does
does.
that
It
work?
takes about 10 days to
Okay.
change your palate. So if you're used to eating, like we've all heard of the standard American diet, which is high in processed foods, high in animal products and not really healthy quality animal products, lowest percentage of plant food. So if we're used to that processed food, there's usually a lot of sugar, a lot of salt, and your body tends to taste it and need it more. So it does take about 10 days for you to change your palate, but that's not forever. And if you do it a little bit over time, you will lose that strong desire or strong need for the heavy, salted, and sugary foods, and you'll start to taste the nicer, subtle nuances of the fresher foods, like the berries or the nut butters and the vegetables. So
Right.
10 days is not a long time, but it takes about 10 days.
So one of the other go-tos I've got since I'm, I was telling you before we started the show was that at one point years ago, I was 60 pounds heavier. And, I sort of, I was shaving, I fell down and, I was really quite heavy and had an incredibly a bad back. And, there was a whole process that I went through there. But I've changed a lot of the way I eat. So I'm 100% plant-based now. And, but one of the go-tos I've got is I do a little coconut yogurt and I'll throw in some berries. But I have them frozen because nowadays, since we're in this pandemic, I thought it was much better for me to get frozen berries. And I'll nuke them for, 5 seconds or something like that, just to thaw them out a bit. But you talked about berries. Is that kind of what you were talking about? Or are you talking about jam or other things like that that are a little bit sweeter?
I'm talking about just plain old berries. So berries are jam-packed with nutrients,
Okay.
but a lot of the jams and stuff have a lot of sugar in it. You can easily make your own jam without all the added sugar. You can throw in a little honey or maple syrup and some chia seeds to thicken it, and you'll have something that's fresher.
No, no way, no way, no way, no way.
That way,
You make your own jam and that's pretty easy?
it's very easy.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
all right, we'll share that too.
Spoken like a real chef. You make your own jam. Next you're going to say you make your own butter and that's easy too.
That I don't do. But I'm talking about fresh berries, right? Think colors, all those phytonutrients. That's where you get all your nutrition from. It's anti-inflammatory. Berries, for anybody who's worried about sugar, even though they're sweet, they kind of have a lower sugar content, say, than a banana. So, and they're tons of fiber. So I'm talking about berries, and frozen are great. I have frozen berries in my freezer all the time. I prefer to buy organic because berries are on that dirty dozen list and they can have a lot of pesticides. And we can't always get good berries all year round. I also like eating in season. So we get into the summer and the spring, the berries are going to start to come out. But if you want to have berries, say in a smoothie or on yogurt, whether it's dairy or coconut, you make yourself a little parfait. You can even sprinkle a few nuts on or a little bit of granola and you get a little crunch, and that's the perfect snack.
Right. And the other thing I started doing was cacao, the little cacao bits, and they're very bittersweet, but they're dark chocolate. And I'll throw some of those on the coconut yogurt as well. And that's really kind of nice.
It is. You
Yeah.
can also sprinkle a little bit on your celery and peanut butter.
Oh.
Right?
Oh,
Try
I
that.
Oh, you temptress, you kitchen temptress.
The point is, right, you want to think out of the box, right? You want to think about what you have. Like the cacao nibs, you're right, they're bitter. It's not like having a piece of chocolate, but it's got all those health benefits on it. And now you're going to get a combination of your crunch and your creamy with a little bitter and, the sweet or the tart from the berries. And it's just a burst of flavor in your mouth. And so think about what you have, and that's great.
So this stuff that you're talking about is really, when you come to it, you kind of go, wow, that must be expensive. But it seems to me like really it's less expensive to eat right than it is to, kind of get the sugary processed stuff and then all of a sudden you're not eating right, and you're spending a little bit more money. So
It's not expensive. It really, really isn't. And I think when you you think about your food budget, right? When you start to make your shifts too, when you start buying healthier foods, whether it's your frozen vegetables or berries, and we're all doing more cooking at home, be a good experiment for somebody to kind of analyze what they're spending on their food. When you're eating a lot of that processed takeout food, you're just shifting your budget. So you're buying less of that and more of the good stuff. And you eat all that processed food, you're just eating more of it because it's not satisfying. You don't have the fiber in the bag of chips, so you inhale a bag, or you're coming back for more 15 minutes later. Whereas you have one of your yogurt parfaits, you're satisfied for a little while longer. So it's definitely less expensive than eating takeout and processed food, for sure.
right, and I know the celery, eating celery can take a little bit of time. So, that process of chewing down on the celery, and suddenly you get to 2 or 3 pieces of celery, you say, okay, I've had enough of this. And you can dip that with peanut butter, and you can dip it with some other things like hummus, which is really good.
Hummus is on my list. We're going to share a recipe for a take on hummus. So hummus is just a spread made with ground up chickpeas, which is great, but we can all get good hummus in the stores. So we're going to share a recipe for a white bean dip that has some Kalamata olives in it and a little garlic or roasted garlic and lemon juice, and you mash that all up. I mean, most people seem to have food processors these days, so if you put it in the food processor, you get the nice creaminess of it, but you could really mash it with a fork for a rougher texture if you needed. But that's a take on hummus that's great with any kind of cut up vegetables. So it's easy to snack on. And you're right, you have to chew celery and carrots and peppers, and you can't have a whole bunch of celery. You get too full, but you can eat, we've mentioned it before, a whole sleeve of Thin Mints, without even thinking about it.
Right, exactly. And you've got some other things on your list besides the berries too, that are really good sources of protein and really kind of good go-tos. Because that's the other thing. I think we're all spending a little bit more time in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the things I think you said early on was, when you make things, don't be afraid to make more than you would eat for that serving, so you have more later. So I think you've got some other items here, on your list, like hard-boiled eggs and, some other items. So can you kind of talk to some of that stuff as well?
Sure. So hard-boiled eggs, gone are the days of where, everybody worried about high cholesterol and dietary fat, and everything was low fat, no fat, egg white omelets, don't eat the yolk of the eggs. And that's just not true. So an egg to me is one of the most perfect foods. It's low in calorie, and I'm not a big calorie counter. I prefer to count colors, not calories, but an egg is low in calorie. It has 6 grams of protein in it. It's a great source of protein. It takes just as long to hard boil a dozen eggs as it does 2. So if you're going to hard boil eggs, hard boil a bunch. They're great for snacks. They're portable. If you were out and about, you could peel a couple of eggs, throw it in a bag, and carry it, with you in the car. I wouldn't do it in the heat, but even if you threw in a little ice pack, if you were not going to be out, they're satisfying. If you're going to have them at home, plain old hard-boiled egg is great. You can throw some guacamole on it. You can sprinkle maybe some chia seeds or hemp seeds on it to zhuzh it up. But hard-boiled eggs are great. But if you're going to hard-boil like 2 eggs, you may as well hard-boil a dozen. They will keep in your refrigerator, and then you'll tend to grab that as opposed to grabbing, some chips or something like that. So even if you walk in the door, or now we're just roaming around the house and you wander into the kitchen and you open the refrigerator and you stare at going, what is it that I want? If your eggs are there, you'll tend to take that before you'll reach for something a little less healthy. So eggs are great. My favorite food.
Right, but they're not to be over consumed. So from what I understand, they've got, you don't want to have too much of the yolk or a lot of people just have egg whites. So I'm just wondering, you have any, you shouldn't be just sort of downing these every hour, right?
No, we eat eggs in our house every single day. My girls and I, it's eggs for breakfast every single day. Eat the yolk. I don't necessarily think I would eat 6 of them, but you really can't. So, you can eat 2 hard-boiled eggs, and if you sit and you chew them, they're going to be filling. Another thing about the body, right? The body is really smart. It knows nature, right? So you think about all the little workers in the body. You eat something, you eat a whole egg or an apple with the peel or an orange as opposed to orange juice. The body knows exactly what to do with everything. All of a sudden you have just an egg white and they're kind of scratching their head, those little workers going, I recognize this, but something's missing. So foods in nature really work in synergy. So you need it together. You need the egg and the egg yolk, in my opinion. So I'm not an egg white fan, and eggs do not raise your cholesterol. So that's, again, a thing of the past.
Right. So your point is in terms of looking at eggs, that you can't really overdo it, or you shouldn't overdo it. I mean, I know a guy I was talking about, like when I was 55 pounds, that this guy would eat, he'd probably have about a half a dozen to a dozen eggs a day. It wasn't a pretty sight. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about reason, have a little bit of snack. You haven't had something, so just kind of balance out, right?
Simple. You want to have 2 scrambled eggs in the morning for breakfast, or if you want to have 1 hard-boiled egg in the afternoon as a snack, that's fine. Overindulging in anything is not good, whether it's unhealthy food or healthy food. So you don't want to eat massive amounts of it. Think about your hunger cues, like just listen to your body. And if you sit and relax and chew your food, you're not going to have 6 eggs. You just can't, unless he's your friend and he's huge, and that's different. I may get some big, massive football players listening, and they may just totally disagree, and they can consume 6 eggs in one sitting. For the regular person, just think reasonable.
There's so many stories I'm leaving out. I want you to know that.
What was that movie? Wasn't that, I always think about that Paul Newman movie where he had to consume all those eggs. I can't think of it anyway.
Yeah, no, it's just it's so much more than that, but we can leave that. So the other thing that I thought about with the eggs was you had mentioned putting guacamole on there and then using avocados. Avocados are really, because I guess the Hass avocado is now, you can get that all year round. So it used to be a seasonal thing, but now you can get it all year round. Can you talk about that a bit more? Because guacamole is certainly one of my favorites.
Guacamole is a really healthy food, right? So avocados are a heart-healthy fat. They're full of those monounsaturated fats. They're rich in fiber. They're rich in potassium. So they're really, really good for you. Guacamole is not a bad food. It's when we consume guacamole with a bag of chips that it becomes unhealthy. But you can just take some avocado, mash it up, throw in a squeeze of lemon or lime juice. If you have some chopped tomatoes or a little onion, mash it all together, throw in a little sprinkle of chili powder, whatever spices you have, and now you pretty much have guacamole. And you can throw that on top of your hard-boiled egg. If you're eating bread, you can throw that on toast, right? One of the foods everybody talks about is avocado toast, but you can throw some avocado on a brown rice cake. I noticed my daughter, her afternoon snack is we get these organic brown rice cakes, and she'll take one and mash some avocado on, put some salt, pepper, and maybe like some greens or herbs. And now you have a healthy, crunchy snack. You've got your fat, your fiber, your greens from your herbs, and there you go. So
yeah, well, back in the day, I'd really like that with, I'd throw some avocado, some guacamole on a big brioche bun with, some extra mushrooms and cheese and onions and a big burger, like rare burger. Okay. And then, I'd throw in some of those big chips and some mayonnaise and some other things. So we're not talking about any of that stuff right now, right?
No.
No. This is like the healthy thing.
Yeah, that's for some of those. That's for some of those other chefs. I'm going to steer you a little more towards nature.
Okay, all right. Well, I just want to be clear. It's not a bad thing, because the one thing I know now, that I'm 60 pounds lighter than I was back in the days when I would eat that way, is that I feel better. It's sort of like I can feel my body. and I can see my body in areas that I couldn't see before, really, quite frankly, you know, and that's not a bad thing, you know, it's really not a bad thing, you know, so that's not bad at all. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I know you mentioned feeling better. I think, you know, as we'll all notice, I always feel better when I eat right. And again, I never like to talk about bad foods. There's sometimes foods, and I will indulge in the pizza or something like that. And I enjoy every bite, but I do notice I don't feel that great later on or the next day as I do if I have something healthier. So that's why there's sometimes foods. And I think the more people choose healthier foods, they'll realize they'll feel better, and you want to feel good. So sometimes you think twice and go, I really want that hunk of cheese, but I know my stomach's going to hurt. And you do, after all, you just don't want that to happen.
Yeah, and I want to clarify something. You know, I think that as long as you feel good about what you're eating, it doesn't matter. Because the studies have shown that if you feel good about what you eat, it actually doesn't matter. Your body responds appropriately. But if you,
Absolutely.
like me, I mean, I'd eat and then I'd feel bad about it. And then apparently the science shows that there's a cortisol reaction to that, to the stress and the guilt and everything like that. So I put my own health in jeopardy because I was actually feeling bad about the food choices I was making. And then afterwards, of course, my body reacted, and there were a whole bunch of other things. So if you feel good about what you eat, doesn't matter what you eat, you feel good, you know, and that's what's important.
It's very true. And it's also who you share your meals with too. So sharing your meals, you know, with people that you enjoy and you love. And so if you're with your friends and you're eating that cheeseburger and you feel good, that's great. But you could have the healthiest meal on the planet and sitting across the table from somebody that you don't like, that stress, you're not going to digest that healthy food the way you should. So it's a lot more than what you put in your mouth.
Yeah.
It really is. So it's
Well,
a great point.
Well, God willing, we all are able nowadays to sit across from someone, or at least pick up the phone and be with someone that we like. And you know, this is so true. It's so true. You had talked about a couple of other things that I think are great, and one of them is my favorite, dark chocolate.
Mm. We always talk about dark chocolate. So you're talking high quality dark chocolate. So think 70% cocoa. Milk chocolate has a lot more sugar, a lot more, you know, it has the milk in it. So dark chocolate is full of antioxidants. It's got something in it called flavonoids, which is good for the body. You, again, because it's not super sweet, it's a little bit bitter, you're not consuming a lot. So you can consume a whole entire bar of milk chocolate, but it's a little harder to eat that much dark chocolate. So dark chocolate in small amounts, a square or two, is actually really good for the body. And you can throw a little bit of that peanut butter on that dark chocolate, and now you have, you know, a healthier Reese's peanut butter cup,
Right.
if you will.
Well, and you know, I was looking over to try to remember what it was about the dark chocolate that you were talking about. It's something called Theobroma, Theobrama, and it's in cacao. It's in that dark chocolate, but it's something that apparently, to your earlier point, helps the brain, the synapses of the brain, and they recommend you having a piece of dark chocolate every day as you get older, because it actually helps with Alzheimer's.
That's what I've heard. So there are a lot of studies. I don't know the studies in particular, but I have come across things like that as well. And Alzheimer's, I've heard people refer to it as, you know, like type 3 diabetes. And again, I'm not quoting any medical stuff here, but there's a lot of, it has to do with the sugar, and there's a lot less sugar in dark chocolate. So it has much more health benefits than the sugar and all that processed food.
So here's the thing I'm reading, and I'm reading it from one of the medical sites, and it reads, it is used to stimulate the nervous system, lower blood pressure, dilates the coronary arteries, and soothes and softens damaged skin. It is also used against anemia, angina, bruises, chapped skin, and burns, diarrhea, and leprosy spots. My goodness gracious, this is We need more dark chocolate.
More dark chocolate.
More dark chocolate, please. Yeah, this is great.
Yesterday I was so desperate for dark chocolate and I didn't have any in the house. I used Hershey's cocoa powder, and that's my treat, with a little sugar or sweetener and a tiny bit of, I love oat milk. And I mixed it all up, and if I'm desperate enough, that's what I can eat.
Oh, that's great.
Daddy, that sounds wonderful.
And I think Phil is going to chime in on the dark chocolate as well. Phil?
Oh, just last week we were talking, and Patty said she makes a vat of oatmeal for the week or so. And this week, well, the last couple of days when I have my oatmeal, I've been adding a really high quality cocoa powder to it, and it comes out delicious. And even when I made some of my organic type of peanut butter, I put the cocoa powder a little bit in there. Unbelievable. Went very well with the apples.
That's fantastic.
Apples. But I'm glad you said that. Actually, I just made slow cooker oatmeal for us. And next time I do that, I'm going to throw some cocoa powder in. And you're right, you don't need a lot. Another thing I've done is if you make a chili, throw a little cocoa powder in the chili, whether it's a meat chili or I do a vegetarian chili with a lot of different beans. It doesn't taste like cocoa, but it adds a richness to your chili. So that's another trick. But I'm going to try it in the oatmeal for sure.
Yeah, there is a whole I forget the name of it, and you'd probably know it, in Mexican food where you use the cocoa, you use the chocolate it's actually a process in cooking, right?
Yes, it is. I can't think of the name, but it is definitely a process in cooking, but it's used a lot.
Yeah, it's a Google question. So, so in terms of fruit and, using the chocolate and using with fruit as well, or maybe not even with fruit, what do you recommend there? I mean, we've talked about celery sticks and peanut butter, and we know that you can mix in chocolate with peanut butter as well. But when you get down to some of the snacks, apples, pineapple, we talked about, some other things that are sort of top of your list?
Well, different. So popcorn is a big snack in our house. I love air pop popcorn. It's a great whole grain. I try to buy organic kernels because corn is a big genetically modified ingredient in this country. So if you can, and you can find organic kernels at reasonably priced anywhere. Any packaged popcorn is full of bad fats, a lot of salt, all other ingredients. Air poppers are inexpensive to buy. It's one of like the first things I give my kids when they go to college. And you can pop your own popcorn, and then you can flavor it with whatever you want. We use just drizzle after with a little extra virgin olive oil, some sea salt, and some fresh cracked pepper. You can season it with chili powder or something spicy if you like. If you tend to be a little sweet, we talked about cinnamon being a warm spice, a sweet spice. Toss it with a little olive oil and cinnamon, and then you kind of have your sweet snack. That's a great place for a little of that cocoa powder. So popcorn doesn't have to be bland. So you can jazz it up whichever way you like. And it's very filling. You cannot eat a huge, gigantic bowl of popcorn without feeling ill because that fiber just takes up so much space. So pop your own popcorn. It's a great snack. Great snack.
That's great. And then you had one other item and a few other items actually in terms of the recipes, but then you had trail mix. So you're talking about making your own trail mix or what?
Make your own trail mix. So trail mix is usually a mixture of nuts, seeds, and dried fruit. So take whatever you like, whatever nuts, seeds you have, just mix it all together. Throw in some dried fruit. Now remember, if you're watching your sugar, there's a lot of sugar in dried fruit, so you may want to use less. If you have some of those dark chocolate chips, or the cacao, which is going to give you that more bitter taste, mix it all together, and there's your trail mix. You don't have to go buy packaged trail mix. So if you have all your different nuts and seeds and you make your own, it's going to be less money. you don't have to put any of the oils on it. Like the one thing I wanted to say, like if you're going to buy your own nut butters, your own granola, your own trail mix, look at the ingredients. There shouldn't be anything in any of those prepackaged foods. There's no reason for there to be canola oil and peanut butter. It should just be ground up peanuts. So make your own trail mix. If now, again, we're shopping a little bit more in bulk. Like I just got a big nut order because I make my own cashew milk and almond milk and things like that. Take a handful of whatever you like, mix it up. You just need a little bit. So make your own, and it's portable. When we are able to move about a little bit more, keep a little bag of that trail mix with you in your car, in your purse. So if you're out running errands, you're not inclined to eat something unhealthy because you have that there. And again, it's going to stabilize and even your blood sugar out.
Where did you order the nuts from?
I use that online service Thrive Market, so it's a subscription service.
Yes, right.
And you know, I don't know what it costs for a year, but the nuts are in a good they're at a good price when you do that, and then they deliver. So that's where I get them, and they're good prices. So
the one item that I thought was interesting, I mean, I got the hummus. I love hummus as a snack. The one item that I thought was really interesting, and then I sort of smacked my head, if you will, like, of course, is the idea of the roasted chickpeas, because I think it's maybe because you throw in some of the smoked paprika or the chili powder, which really gives it a little bit of kick. But can you talk about that real quick, if you don't mind? It's going to be posted up as a snack, but.
Yes, and we're including that recipe as well. So roasted chickpeas, a great source of protein. So you can cook your own chickpeas, but take a can of chickpeas, drain them, rinse them. Always rinse your canned beans. They sit in a liquid in the tin. And I shake them out and I put them on a kitchen towel and dry them off a little bit. And then you just toss them with a tiny little bit of olive oil and a ton of whatever spice you like. So smoked paprika is good, chili powder. A friend just recently did za'atar seasoning. You could do cinnamon if you want the sweet. I bet you the cocoa powder really, or the cacao would be great on that. Anything that you like. It could be just simple salt if you want something simple. And then you put them on a parchment lined baking sheet and you bake them in the oven until they crisp up. And I check mine every 15 minutes. It could take 40 minutes, 50 minutes, and then they're going to crisp up a little bit more when they cool. Now you have a crunchy snack that's got the fat, the fiber, and the protein. You've got your olive oil for a little healthy fat, and it's going to satisfy that crunch instead of reaching, I'm sorry, the chip industry, but you're thinking about that bag of chips, right? Sometimes we just want the crunch, and it's going to satisfy that crunch, and it's got the fiber and the protein, and it's going to make you feel full, and they're really, really good. It's a great snack.
Well, you know, Nancy, there's a jungle of options out there, and I think you've given us a guide. You've given us at least some idea in terms of what's in the jungle and ways to go ahead and navigate, you know, you know, really, it is like that, especially nowadays when you go out to the store, you know, and it doesn't just have to be hummus or processed food, which you've given us some real clear options about. I think there may be a question out there. I think, Phil, you might have a question, and feel free at this point, because we've got about 6 minutes or so left on the timer. I think we're doing it for about 45 minutes or so. So Phil, please go ahead.
I was thinking, Nancy, can you give us a recipe maybe for a homemade salsa so that we can have our celery and carrots and broccoli or other vegetables with it? I love salsa.
No, salsa's very good. I mean, I can talk you through it now, but what I'm going to do is I'll write it up and I'm going to send it to Keith, and then he can post it as well. But It's also really, really simple, you know, and it's with stuff we have in the pantry. Like, you don't have to use fresh tomatoes, especially now. Fresh tomatoes are bleh. But, you know, a can or a jar of diced tomatoes, and you judge it up with some herbs and spices and some peppers, and you throw it all together, and there you have your homemade salsa. But I will write it up for you, and I'll give it a key so you have it in front of you. But everything can be done with what's in the pantry or the fridge. And then you have a healthier version. So great. I'm glad you asked that question.
And fresh.
Yeah.
Well, and
I like that because we also got the guacamole going, so that's good.
Yeah.
yeah, so it's great. So now you're going to have your guacamole and your homemade salsa and your crunchy vegetables, and use every vegetable you can get your hand on, and you don't necessarily need all those chips. So if you want the chips, have a few chips.
I'm not sure we even need dinner for that matter.
True. Well, that's the beauty of all this. All this is healthy food, right? You could make a meal out of this if you really wanted to. There's your, your meze plate or whatever, if you're going to have a party and serve all appetizers. Everything from this list.
That sounds great. And the other thing is that, when I go to the store now, you do realize like chickpeas are like $1 a can for chickpeas, so you can get, you can really, given what your direction and, in terms of these recipes, whether or not it's hummus or whether or not it's the chickpeas or whether or not it's using a can of, diced tomatoes to make some salsa, you really can eat quite well and cost effectively as well. It's good.
Absolutely. I mean, beans are probably one of the least expensive foods around, and they're easily and readily available. Now, especially since we're home, a lot of people are kind of stocking up on beans because you might not be able to get something fresh. And you can always make something from the pantry with beans and canned or diced tomatoes. You can even find them in glass jars. And it's less expensive and will last you longer than if you actually went out and bought prepared salsa, say. And it tastes better.
I like
what's
that.
going into your food.
I like that. I've got all those beans down in the basement. I've got to figure out what to do with them all. So that's good.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of minutes. Any other questions? I think, Patty, I wasn't sure if you asked a question or not. You were on mute. So.
No, but if you're looking for a topic, my soup always tastes kind of watery. I'd like more information about soups, but I'm having difficulty getting fresh vegetables because I'm not going out at all. So a good tasting soup with, beans and, I would like soups. Yeah.
Okay, so we can do, I love soups. To me, soups is my favorite food. So we can do kind of like soups and stews or soups and chilies. And once you have a template, again, you can really make it your own. So that's a great topic and something very easy to do. And what I love about them also is like the hard-boiled eggs or anything, you can make a vat of it, make your big pot and you can freeze them in smaller portions. So then you always have it available. So, and I like to do like rich creamy soups without the cream. So we can definitely do that. And Keith and I had talked at another topic I think we're thinking about is like savory breakfasts, because we tend to go for those sweets. So that's another thing. But the soups and stews, no problem, Patty. I can take care of that for you.
Yeah, you know what we bought recently? We bought one of those Instant Pots, the Instapots. And we were surprised because, we used to make pea soup. It used to take a good hour or 2 hours. You put it in the Instant Pot now, it's a 15-minute, 20-minute thing.
Absolutely.
And it comes out really quite well, and you can do the same with a lot of other things. It's a one-pot solution. Phil, you had a question?
Yes, with the summer coming up pretty fast, wanted to know, I plan on grilling some vegetables and wanted to know what type of marinade would you recommend putting on it? A little lemon juice, a little oil?
Olive oil, salt, pepper, lemon juice, a vinegar, and that's all you need. But that's actually another topic we can talk about.
I would love to hear it, because what you just said is what mixture I had in mind.
That's the go-to, but I do have a whole sheet of like dressings and marinades, because once you make a salad dressing, you can turn it into a marinade. So that's another one that I would love to share, because then there's different flavor profiles, and it could be just a couple of different ingredients that totally change it. So you could have your basic olive oil, vinegar, say staple, and then maybe throw in a little soy sauce or tamari or a little rice vinegar, which is easy to find in all the grocery stores.
Right.
And then you have more of an Asian profile, you know, so it's very easy. You throw in a lot of oregano and much more lemon juice, and maybe you've got more of a Mediterranean Greek flavor profile. So once you have your basic, you can go from there. I don't tend to use, sometimes you can throw a little sweetener in, like a honey or maple syrup, and that's just to balance out the acid, the flavor. Not always necessary. Very simple, but we can do I have a whole sheet on all different things like that. So
Perfect. I'm so excited because I was looking at the grill. I was doing my yard work, and
right.
I'm still scratching my head. How can I be in isolation, locked up in the house with a refrigerator next to me, and I'm losing weight? But it's all this healthy eating.
Right. No,
And I said,
love it.
I can't wait to barbecue and roast some vegetables. And, you know, I came thinking, well, I have the rice vinegar, I have the regular vinegar. I can make a marinade with that and grill some roasted peppers or roast them, and all the fun things I can make on that grill. Non-meat, you know, maybe a little bit, but
Well,
considering.
if meat's your pleasure, that's totally fine. But again, it's just, I think meat, we always grew up, right? Meat was the center of the plate,
Yes.
and vegetables were the side dish. Now it's just flip-flopping it. And those summer vegetables, I mean, Phil, you don't have to do a lot to them. Like I always think, especially here on Long Island, when these vegetables are at their peak, you let the ingredients shine. You don't need to do anything crazy to them. Something
I'm ready
simple.
to roast the pineapples.
Grill your pineapple and grill peaches. You grill that pineapple, you grill peaches with just a little drizzle of olive oil, and you put it on to get just a few grill marks, and it softens it up, and the natural sugars of the fruit with the heat, there's your dessert. If you want your ice cream, you put a little bit of ice cream on that grilled peach, or a little bit of that coconut yogurt or the coconut ice cream that you were talking about, Keith. And there's an amazing dessert without the insane calories.
I was thinking, you know, for my dessert would be the peaches soaked in wine. Oh.
That would be good too.
Yeah, I think you're going a little light there, Phil. I think it's peaches soaked in brandy, or
Oh, okay.
you know, this is they've actually shown that during this time the alcohol sales have gone up. So
The alcohol is boosting.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm not encouraging that. I'm just saying, you know, I just don't want you to think that this is encouragement. So
I remember that sometimes food.
yeah. So we're at the towards the end here in terms of time. I just want you to know that how much and I think everyone really appreciates your time and what you do here, Nancy. And you know, I think you're giving us all some not only some perspective on food, but you're also giving us a way to look at this time as a way to learn, as a way to grow, as a way to develop. And when I say grow physically, spiritually, mentally, in terms of I love this term you use, flavor profiles. It makes me feel like I'm in university. It makes me feel like I've gone to university. It's just great. So I just want to really say that to you while we're on air here, and just thank you again for everything you're doing, because it really is very helpful, not only to me, but I know everyone who watches this while they're here, but also afterwards. So thank you very much.
Oh, and I want to say, I love being here. I love seeing you guys every week. I love your questions. I love your suggestions. So this has just been, it's really one of the highlights of my week as I sit here, you know, it's been great too. So thank you so much for inviting me.
I also do want to blame you, because, you know, after we finish here, after we talk about all this food, I go to lunch, and I mean, I'm already really quite hungry. So, you know.
Food is love. Food is love. So that's just the way I think about it. So that's
we'll see you for segment 5 of next week. And again, thank you very much. Nancy's Nourishing Kitchen. And how would people find out about you again?
Nancy'sNourishingKitchen.com is my website, and Nancy Ferraris at me.com is my email. So call me,
Great.
Email me, look
Great.
me up. I'll answer anything.
Okay, thank you. And we're out. Okay.
All right.
Thank you
Bye,
very
guys.
much.
Thanks.